Hello and welcome to Interbeing Art. This is a trip report of a Salvia experience I had back in 2016. The day came where I felt ready and prepared to try Salvia. I had a quiet, safe space and a friend to trip sit me and lend me their bong. It was late on a Monday night. I was tired and anxious, but in my mind, it was now or never. I packed the bowl with 20x salvia extract with just a little bit of weed at the bottom. I then spent a good 10 minutes working myself up for the experience. After lighting some incense to set the vibe, I took off my shirt and began to take my first hit. Sitting on the bed, I slowly pulled the smoke into my lungs while my friend lit the bowl. I exhaled quickly and did the same twice more. And while I was inhaling my third hit, I blacked out, and I do not remember exhaling. My senses and vision slowly faded back in, and I could see something out of focus. As the darkness began to clear, I realized it was a dancing orange rectangle wearing a bright yellow t-shirt with black stripes. I could hear distant drumming that may or may not have been my heartbeat, and the rectangle was curving itself to stomp on every beat of this music. I had this intense feeling of being both a child and Paleolithic, as if Sesame Street was deep in the Congo jungle. It's the only way I can describe it, but the feeling was overwhelming and complete. I tried so hard to look away, but it was like I was restrained and sinking, like either being dragged by something or being on an amusement park ride. I remember clenching my jaw and repeatedly thinking, not like this, not like this. Slowly, I began to turn away to see this rectangular figure multiply into the distance down a suburban street. I felt as if my face was cement and it was being pushed down. The further down I traveled, the stronger I would feel these coarse textural sensations scraping across my face. I saw many other entities, but the only other one I can remember was a t-shirt with two small beacons for eyes suspended in front of a lawn. I started to panic because I thought I was dying. I was resisting the trip and struggling to orient myself in this frightening yet strangely familiar space. I kept trying to look for the horizon, but instead I would just find hordes of these abstract entities. I then suddenly saw in the distance a hole at the end of a tunnel, through which was my bedroom as seen through my eyes still sitting on the bed. After only a moment, I was back in my room in the same spot on my bed, yet still experiencing heavy effects. I still felt that pushing sensation and continued to see sinister looking aliens in the dark corners of my room. My friend tried to calm me down by putting their hand on my bare chest, but their hand felt like it was burning me. The incense smoke started to feel like it was choking me, so they helped me limp to the window so I could get some fresh air. I couldn't walk properly because I still had a strong sense of being pulled to the left, and like I had to resist being spun back into that salvia space. Like my mind was a broken carousel, attempting to rotate counterclockwise but immediately snapping back to its original position. I was sobbing, but I couldn't cry. I announced very loudly that I am never doing salvia again, in between me saying, "Oh my god," and "no fucking way," over and over again. I had this palpable feeling of being 2 or 3 years old again. Though I wasn't acting like a child, I was still fully aware I was an adult. Eventually I calmed down and fell asleep. Though I was in the salvia space for no longer than 2 minutes, it felt so much longer. But after 20 minutes, I felt completely sober again. The following week after this trip, I was somewhat disassociated and a bit off, but eventually I felt like myself again. So it's been nearly 5 years since I had this trip, and there hasn't been a day that's gone by that I haven't thought about it. Hearing the description of my trip, one might get the impression that it was just a horrible experience, but that just wasn't the case. It was scary and uncomfortable, but it was significant and one of the highlights of my life. That being said, you can see how there is a strong potential for danger here psychologically. Like, this was just 20x. If you went on a higher extract for your first time or you're more sensitive to this stuff, it could lead to a traumatic experience, not knowing how powerful this thing can be. I just wanted to give some warnings or some things I would do differently if I were to do it again. And the biggest thing that I would do differently is when it comes to salvia extracts, I just don't think the Terrence McKenna method of 3 big hits is the way to go. So all that psychological preparation of making sure that you surrender to the experience, once you find yourself in the midst of this salvia experience, you kind of forget who you are, let alone that you're having a salvia experience. All you know is that it's very uncomfortable and you want to get out. And that's why I struggled, even though beforehand I told myself that I was going to surrender. Because of salvia-induced dysphoria, it creates a very unpleasant feelings, like textural feelings. Any like incense smoke or clothing that you have on can become very uncomfortable. Just wearing a shirt can feel like coarse rags that are choking you, for example. Potentially, not always. So if this kind of experience is something that interests you, my recommendation is to start at a low extract, smoke only a little bit, and then work your way up until you start feeling things. Salvia works on a reverse tolerance basis, meaning that once you've broken through or experienced the effects of salvia, it's actually easier to experience it the next time, and you need less of a dose to experience the same amount of effects. So if you're going to take this method, just be patient. You may not feel anything the first few times you try, but it's much better than just plunging into this experience where you could potentially traumatize yourself. But with all that being said, I do not regret this experience. It was absolutely incredible. I love sharing it with you, and it's greatly inspired my artwork, and I look forward to the day that I do it again. If you are a returning viewer of this channel, you might be wondering what happened to my old version of this trip report. I decided to privatize it because I said some cringy things. I did it a while ago. I really wanted the report out there, and I didn't want it being muddied down by some not so great takes. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you liked it. And if you did, be sure to leave a like. It helps out this channel a lot. If you haven't already, subscribe, because I'm going to be releasing weekly salvia-based content. This video was brought to you by my lovely patrons over at Patreon. I've begun to make custom interbeings for each one of my patrons that were all more or less inspired by this salvia trip that I just said. So if you would like your own salvia-inspired interbeing, then just go over to Patreon and sign up at any tier. Or if you would like to make a one-time donation, just go to paypal.me/interbeingart. Coffee would be appreciated. And that's it for this video. Trip safe.